It was an unbelievable nightmare, far worse than the death of my first child.
Claire Zimmerman's son was taken from her for only 3 days, but it was a harrowing experience her family will never forget. It started as a night out with Dad at a Tigers game.
Right back up the middle into center, base hit.
And ended with their 7-year-old boy in foster care.
I felt totally helpless. I felt desperate.
Claire won't allow current pictures of Leo to be publicized, but she and her husband, Christopher Ratte, want everyone to know what happened. At the ballpark, Christopher bought Leo a lemonade. Turns out, the University of Michigan archaeology professor accidentally bought Mike's Hard Lemonade, which has alcohol in it.
It was just a mistake.
Now the couple is suing the state for taking their son because of what appears by all accounts to have been an honest mistake.
So exactly how did little Leo end up in foster care? Near the end of the ball game, security alerted Detroit police about the alcoholic lemonade. And from there, Claire says everything spiraled out of control.
According to the lawsuit, even before getting the hospital test results that showed no alcohol in Leo's blood, a Detroit police officer turned the boy over to the State Department of Human Services. And the next day, DHS put Leo in foster care.
It's terrifying. It makes you understand what it's like to live under a totalitarian regime or something, where you have to fear for your own safety. Where the government doesn't provide you protection, it actually threatens you.
Michigan ACLU legal director Michael J. Steinberg says Michigan law is unconstitutional because it allows a child to be taken from his parents without having to prove the child is in immediate danger.
The courts across the country have said if you're going to take a kid without a hearing, there has to be a finding or showing that the child's in harm.
Steinberg and other lawyers say there's another major flaw with the system. The state fails to place children with family, even though Michigan law requires DHS to try to do that. In Leo's case, Steinberg says DHS refused to release him to his aunts and even to his own mom, who had nothing to do with what happened at the ballpark.
But what's happening in Michigan is a pattern of kids being taken away from parents against whom no allegations are made, simply based on the other parent's conduct.
University of Michigan law professor Vivek Sankran challenges DHS decisions in the court daily, and he's alarmed by what he calls the guilt by association problem. Sankran says both DHS and the courts are equally to blame for perfectly fit parents losing their children.
We're one of 2 states in the country that have this type of doctrine. Most other states have clear case law that unless you make allegations against a parent, that parent gets their child back immediately.
Sankran points to another troubling case. Bryson Stone's mom abused drugs, and she willingly gave up the baby to his biological father, Milton Stone, right after Bryson was born.
They said I'll be able to take him home. I was there at his birth.
Instead of allowing Milton to take his own son home, Wayne County DHS workers had Bryson put in foster care, even though Milton was never accused of abuse or neglect.
These teddy bears represent each foster kid I had.
And get this, Milton is currently the foster parent to his cousin Antonio. So Michigan DHS approved Milton to foster parent his cousin, but refused to let him parent his own son.
This is a clear violation of this father's fundamental right to parent. It's one of the most closely guarded rights that we have under the United States Constitution, and it's being completely trampled on.
Tracy Green is Milton's attorney. Green says DHS should have never brought this case before a judge.
DHS officials tell us safety comes first, so the child is often placed in foster care until it can be determined if the other parent is complicit in the danger.
But experts say a child's time in foster care is often prolonged because DHS requires the parents, who are not even accused of abuse or neglect, to comply with something called a service plan. It's a list of requirements like this that can include psychological evaluations and parenting classes, which often conflict with parents' work hours.
If you fail to follow the plan to a T, you may not get your kids back. DHS blames the courts for that, even though they create the service plans that the judges approve.
If a parent decides not to work with the court, if they decide to disregard the court's orders, then that case is going to move forward, in all likelihood, towards termination of parental rights.
But why does a parent who's not accused of abuse have to follow one of your service plans? They're not accused of the abuse. Why should they have to jump through your hoops? It's their child.
Again, it's the way Michigan law is set up, the court has jurisdiction over the entire family.
DHS officials like Steve Yeager insist their workers have no greater authority in the courtroom than the parents' lawyers or the child's representatives. But many legal experts tell us, in many cases, the state and the court have no business stepping in the first place.
We cannot take for granted the idea that the state is going to protect our rights. It's not true.
I should point out that DHS officials say they cannot comment on specific cases, but they insist the safety of children is their #1 priority. Leo Ratte's family is working hard to change the child seizure law so that the state will have to show that a child is in immediate danger before he or she is taken from a parent. If you would like more information about the proposed Leo's law, please head to WXYZ.com. I'm Heather Catallo, Channel 7 Action News.